Hey kids, it's the City and Beyond with another airline review. And this time, we will be reviewing Westjet, a Canadian budget airline. This was our first time flying with them, and we flew from New York City all the way to Toronto, or as the Canadians say it, Toronto.
Hold on. Before we go any further, let's be honest, we're going to need to get in front of the camera for this.
Alright, that's better.
Hey kids, I'm Kamau.
And I'm Selena.
And we're with the City and Beyond. And it's been a while, but we got a new one for you. Are you ready for another airline review?
And as you can probably gather, we have a lot to say about this airline.
Make sure to stay until the very end of the video so you can see our final score.
And we do our scores from 1 to 5. 1 being the worst, and 5 being the best.
So as I was saying before, we flew with Westjet on a 737-800 from LaGuardia to Toronto. Toronto. We started off with a delay, but we expected it, and we were prepared for it. That's a different video.
So where should we start? Luggage?
Luggage. If you've been subscribed to us for a while, there's one thing that you should know that reigns supreme. We do not do checked bags.
We had planned to have 1 carry-on size bag and 2 personal bags, I believe.
Correct.
And we checked the measurements for both, and with our tickets, we were able to bring both. We also forgot to mention, we booked our tickets through Delta. It was operated by Westjet. So we actually thought we were going to review Delta and not Westjet for this video.
Surprise!
I would say for luggage, you actually get a good amount with your economy ticket because we were both able, if we wanted to, able to bring a carry-on and a personal item. If I had to compare budget airlines in America, like Frontier, Spirit, to Westjet, in the luggage department, you actually get more with Westjet, I think, with an economy ticket.
So boarding, horrible.
Horrible.
Absolutely horrendous.
The last time I had a really big issue with boarding was Singapore Airlines. I just have a big issue with bad operational procedures, and if your boarding is bad, it's already gonna get me peeved off. It was chaotic. We had just gotten our gate because we were hanging out in the lounge. We walk over, it was utter chaos, and there was another WestJet flight also that was chaotic right next door to it. So it was just a massive mess, and you didn't know which gate was talking to which crowd, or there's only really one crowd.
Yeah.
It was a mess.
Well, there's one thing that happened that I'm not going to use against the airline at all because I've noticed it happens a lot in airports. It's the people at the counter are relying on the intercom system, and a lot of times you don't know who's talking, where it's from. But in this particular scenario, not only was that happening, but you could barely hear them to begin with. And no one took the time out to just like regulate that in person. They all just relied on the intercom system, which was not a good look. But this is a universal thing. I'm not blaming them for that at all.
I'm sure that some people would be like, well, what would you suggest that they do? One of the things that I think it was Lufthansa that I loved that they did was send somebody to the back of the line, like further into the line. Well, we were actually in the line and not a crowd, but at least like send somebody into it so they can reiterate what's being said and kind of get the line in order. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I try to think like, oh, maybe it's just LaGuardia. The same thing happened in Toronto. Yeah. It was a little more organized, but it was still a mess. You didn't really know what was happening. Yeah, I was
completely disorganized. It was a birthday flight. That was the whole point of this trip, right? And so when we originally bought the tickets, we bought the
it was economy.
We bought the economy tickets, and they had us in one of the last groups to board. Perfectly fine. As a birthday present to myself, I upgraded us to economy plus.
Yeah, which I'm still really confused about, and I had to read more about after our flights. We were in row 6, okay? And as you will see on the screen, and you can assume, row 6 is very close to the front. And somehow, we were in like one of the last groups to board.
Yeah.
In my mind, I thought we had paid to upgrade to premium because I thought that was like the economy plus.
Right.
But apparently, premium is actually first class or whatever. And there's about like 8 of those seats. So we were right behind them.
Yes.
Pretty much.
Yes.
And for some reason, we were at the end of the boarding.
Right.
And I'm still, if anyone can explain it to me, or if they work for WestJet, or me, it happened to us twice now.
Yes.
So I thought it wouldn't happen.
It wasn't a fluke.
Yeah, I thought it wasn't gonna happen the second time, but it did. And that's when the person at the counter, she said, "Well, you're not actually in premium. You're still in economy." Because we were one of the last groups, or listed as one of the last groups, they were like, "Oh, I don't think we're gonna have room, so we need you guys to check in bags."
Yeah, I was carrying 2 personal size bags, so there was no need to check them whatsoever. They could have easily gone under the seat. That's actually quite literally what they are designed for. On top of the chaos of boarding, we also had them tell us that there was no room in the overhead left and we needed to check our bags. They made us check the rolling bag, which again was a personal size bag.
And then my carry-on.
Which again, we shouldn't have. And under normal circumstances, if we had boarded the plane and it was packed to the gills, which it was a full flight, I would just sweep it under the rug and say, it is what it is because we boarded last. I don't understand the matrix of groups. We don't have a credit card or premium thing with them.
Right.
I understand. But there was nobody in our row and the overhead bins were completely empty because it doesn't say it, but they were practically reserved for economy plus.
Yeah.
Because if there's one thing I do hate, it's standing at that carousel. Seating. I think the seats were comfortable. Again, we got boosted. Personally, we did it ourselves, so we were in economy plus. So I can't speak to the
economy plus.
I can't really speak on the standard leg room because this was supposed to be a treat. I didn't really think about it. Otherwise, we probably would have done it regular.
At least one.
So that we could tell you. We'll probably put up the dimensions of what it's like for the regular economy seat, since that's typically what people would be booking. But we were in economy plus. The seats were comfortably just fine. There were no screens on the back of the plane, but the flight, I believe, was
back of the seat.
Sorry, on back of the seats. Sorry, not the back of the plane. On the back of the seats, I believe they had the phone entertainment. I didn't bother. It was a short flight.
I guess they're like more like extra room seats, but they're still economy.
Right.
So I would say if you can't get your seats further up, I think those seats are just, it doesn't have to be the 6th row, but like I think just further up in the plane, the further back probably the less leg room. Food and drinks. We didn't, like we said, we were in a lounge before we got to our flight. So we ate there and we were delayed. So it transitioned from breakfast to lunch. That's when you know that you've been in the lounge for a long time. Or you caught them at a really good time. We weren't really hungry on the plane.
No.
So we didn't order anything extra. And what we got was pretzels and like a drink.
A beverage,
yeah, which is pretty standard on most planes.
Right.
And again, if we're comparing it to an American budget airline, Frontier or Spirit, that's still more than what we get on there. You have to pay for everything on there. So in that regard, if WestJet is supposed to be like Canada's version of those two, they not only let you bring it on a carry-on for free, but they also give you snacks and beverages for free.
Now it's time for the people that bring it on home. The crew was fine. They weren't great. I'm not going to say they went above and beyond. They didn't. They weren't bad, because we've definitely had some dismissive people in the past.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they were fine. They were good. They did their job.
Yeah, and honestly, with being delayed that first flight,
Yeah.
I think that crew was probably a little bit more on edge than the one coming back home from Toronto. I will give a shout out to people who checked us in LaGuardia. I think those are the nicest WestJet employees I met. The people, obviously at the gate, horrible. The coming back check-in was a lot. It was a lot, and I know that, and it wasn't any of the employees' fault. I think they actually did really good with what they had, and I think they were understaffed for how many people were actually going to be flying that morning.
Final score time.
Final score!
Are you ready for it? Are you ready for it?
I actually don't even know what my score is going to be yet, but Kamau's going to go first. Anyway.
Yes, I do know what my score is. Not to really shout anybody out, but we're gonna kind of have to do it anyway. But we've been watching a lot of pizza reviews. If you know, you know. And we know that, and then if you know the rules, and everybody knows the rules, right? You only get one shot. In this case, you get one flight. One flight, everybody knows the rules.
Well, we technically did 2 flights.
We technically did 2, so they actually
one trip, that's the rule.
You technically have 2 shots to make this happen.
If we take you both ways.
If we take you both ways, and I have to compare it to everything that I've been in, right? And I know in some of the more recent videos, I've scored very high because I've had very good experiences. We've never done a review for this one airline, but it absolutely gets like straight up 1, right? I'm not going to mention them because I don't like them.
We've flown them before, just before we started doing videos.
Right. And if you've watched enough of these, then you know who the airline
exactly
is. I'm not mentioning them because, right? But I'm going to have to say that my score, comparative to everyone else that I've been on and my experiences, I'm going to give them a 2.75. 2.75. If I'm thinking that an airline like Qatar, above and beyond, like amazing experience.
In economy
at that. Yeah. My experience on Alaska Airlines, which is a national airline, is amazing. The first time I flew to Canada, before I even met my wife, I was on Air Canada. That was also an amazing experience. I know that it's changed over time and what have you, but this was below an average experience. I have a lot of leniency, and the way I kind of figure it is we gave United, which is typically who we fly on. We have one of their major hubs out here. I gave them a 3.5. So I felt scoring them the same as United would be disingenuous because it wasn't as good as an experience. And I don't think giving it just a half a point would have worked. For 2 main reasons that I'm gonna give you right now is reason number 1, the chaotic boarding. I despise chaotic boarding. I've been on many an international flight. There's almost no excuse for it, especially to our neighbors to the north. It's very run-of-the-mill and it's very standard. And number 2, you made me check my bag for absolutely, positively no reason at all. And those are major negatives. And unfortunately, again, as the kids say, the rest of the experience was mid. It wasn't good, it wasn't bad, it was just right there in between. But there were some negatives, and those negatives are gonna drop you down that 1/4 of a point from the middle of the road 3. Westjet, 2.75, that's my review. On to the wife.
So one of the reasons why we make these videos is to make sure that you have adequate information, even though it's just our opinions, based off of our experiences, about airlines that you're gonna put money towards. Right. If you're not traveling all the time and you're a part-time traveler like us, you don't wanna waste your money on something, especially if you know it's gonna be bad. Like, you know what I mean?
Right.
Like, we fly Spirit, and we've decided, like, hey, anytime we fly Spirit, we know we gotta, it's a cheap flight, but we're gonna pay for those big front seats because that will make it worth our dime, you know? And I am going to score WestJet based off of that in mind because I don't want people to waste money if there's another option that's better just because it's a little cheaper. And honestly, I don't think our flights were that cheap. We didn't mention that. The cost was not actually Spirit Frontier level. Like, we paid like United, JetBlue, Air Canada type money. So with that in mind, I'm gonna give them a 2.5.
Ooh,
I was leaning towards a 2, but I'll give them a 2.5 because, like Kamau said, everything else was pretty mid and nothing like great. And then obviously boarding, enough said. I feel like it's a 2.5. If there's another airline that you can pay for that's about the same amount, just go with them instead because I think there's a good chance that you might experience some of these things just like we did. It's not just like a fluke. We've heard a couple other people fly WestJet, and it kind of seems like everybody has kind of like okay experiences, nothing great. They just don't have anything to really complain about, which is also not like worth spending your money if somebody that's a better airline has the same price. So 2.5. You doing the math?
I did the math in my head. We're probably gonna edit this if I get it wrong, but I kind of doubt it.
I'll do it while you.
So I think that would bring their total score, because we averaged the two of our scores, to 2.625, which is weird. So because it has to do with your money, math. Because it has to do with your money,
You say 2.6.
I'm going to round down to 2.6, which is a very awkward score. And for anybody at home that prefers things,
I feel like that's a good score.
On a
I
metric
think it's a good overall score.
Yeah, if you prefer things on a metrics of a quarter at a time, then it's 2.5. But you know, the extra credit for how I felt about it. So the real score is 2.6.
Yeah.
Wait, actually, I have a question for you. Would you fly Westjet again?
If I was really trying to cut costs and it was one of the cheaper flights, probably. And I already have the expectation of low expectations.
Yes, I would also.
Not that I had high expectations.
I would also fly them again. Now, I just want to remind you, kids at home, that these flights are subjective. I'm sure somebody's had a way better experience than we did. I'm sure they took out and they brought you the warm towels to put on your face and everything like that. No, but seriously, but this was our experience. This is our review. We're trying to save you some money, and we're letting you know what the experience was. So that's our review. Like us if you like us. Remember to share the video.
Remember to subscribe and click the notification bell so you know the next time we upload a video.
And I would say I'll see you next week, but
I'll see you soon.
we'll see you real soon.
Bye.